The dawn rose like a wounded sky god, spilling red across the world. Not the soft red of morning warmth, but a deep and haunting crimson that stretched like blood smeared over the heavens. The Apache camp stirred quietly. Warriors awoke not to the usual murmurs of morning fire and sharpening flint, but to the hush of uneasy hearts and the heavy silence of men who understood signs given by the earth and sky. The breeze carried the faint smell of cedar smoke from last night's prayer fire. A hawk's cry broke the stillness, sharp and echoing through the pines. Lone Wolf, scarred in youth from mountain cat claws and hardened by the teachings of wise elders, stepped into the open. His bare chest embraced the cold breeze as he stared upward. The hawk circled once, twice, and on the third circle, a single feather, dark red at the tip, fell to earth and landed before Lone Wolf's feet. The warriors behind him exchanged glances but made no sound. Signs in the Apache way are not debated, they are respected. Lone Wolf knelt and picked up the feather, holding it gently as one would cradle a sacred memory. Red for struggle, red for war, red for necessity. The tribal elders gathered as flames crackled in the council circle. Cedar branches burned, releasing smoke believed to guide the spirits of warrior ancestors to listen beside them. The shaman, old as river stone and quiet as the wind at dusk, cast crushed blue cornmeal into the fire, letting the smoke tell its story. Lone Wolf took his place among the circle of warriors, men who carried the rough strength of earth and the silent discipline of mountain cats. No woman sat there, no voice except men who bore the responsibility of protecting life and honor. The shaman finally spoke, voice steady like slow thunder. 3 nights ago, shadows moved beyond the southern ridge. Riders not of our people. Their fires burn low, not for warmth, but for hiding. They watch land not to respect it, but to take it. His gaze turned to the red-tipped feather. The sky warns us. A trial approaches. Lone Wolf's jaw tightened, but his eyes remained calm. Focused, never flickering. He remembered his father's words. A warrior who fears battle dies in spirit before he dies in flesh. But a warrior who rushes to battle without mind is lost before the first strike. Young warriors gathered later beneath the pines, quiet bear, broad-shouldered and cautious. Red Raven, swift and sharp-eyed. Thunder Arrow, fierce but learning patience like a river-learned stone. Lone Wolf addressed them with steady voice. Enemies come not for pride, not for glory. They come for what they can claim. We are not hunters today. We are the shield that becomes the spear only when there is no other way. Training began. Days of silence and movement. Warriors covered themselves in ash, blending into earth like spirits. They slept on stone ledges, not soft hides. They starved the body to sharpen instinct. They listened to wind to know direction, birds to know intruders and the silence of forest when danger breathes too close. They learned to walk without disturbing pine needles, to draw bowstrings without sound, to wait motionless for hours if needed. Lone Wolf taught them the lesson taught to him. Strength without discipline is a broken arrow. The shaman carved a ceremonial blade from flint and handed it to Lone Wolf. The blade was not for killing. It symbolized weight of leadership. To lead warriors means to carry their lives in one's hands. Lone Wolf accepted it without pride, without smile. Duty is quiet. Scouts returned one cold sunrise. Footprints, horse tracks, camp smoke far south. Raiders, experienced fighters. Men who hunted not animals but other men. War council began. Some older warriors wished for frontal confrontation, prideful clash. Lone Wolf spoke calm, never raising voice. We do not fight to prove strength. We fight to protect breath of our children, warmth of our fires, peace of our sleep. Slowly, agreement settled like dust upon earth. Strategy chosen. The canyon pass would be battlefield. A narrow throat of stone where horses could not run and rifles could not aim wide. Silent ambush. Precision over chaos. Night before action, warriors sat in circle. No celebration, no joking. They sharpened spears and minds. Lone Wolf prayed not for victory, but for clarity, honor, and steady hands. The feather rested beside him, quiet like omen fulfilled. At dawn, the enemy marched into the pass. They spoke loud, careless, believing strength comes from steel and noise. Lone Wolf waited above them, breath slow, every muscle steady. He watched until the earth itself seemed to hold breath. Then a single hawkbone whistle. A high, soft note, stones tumbled. Logs rolled. Dust burst like smoke. Arrows fell silent as snowfall, swift, deadly, unhesitating. Warriors leapt like mountain spirits, feet barely touching ground. blades flashing only when necessary. No screams from Apache men. They fought like silence given form. Lone Wolf moved through chaos with calm precision, striking only those who raised rifles, subduing those who fled without needless harm. Victory earned not by rage but by discipline. When dust settled, silence returned heavy and sacred. Lone Wolf lifted his hand, no cheers. The dead lay where they fell. Apache buried them under stone cairns, speaking no hatred, for honor remains even in enemy death. Supplies taken, powder buried deep so earth reclaims danger. No man among Apache camp boasted or sang. Warriors do not celebrate necessity. That night, Lone Wolf sat alone as stars ignited across black sky. Wind whispered through pines like ancestors breathing approval. The hawk returned, silent above him. Lone Wolf placed the feather on earth and bowed his head. "I am not greater than this land," he whispered. "I am only servant to its breath." When morning came, the dawn was no longer crimson. Soft gold touched the peaks like blessing. The warning had passed. The trial was faced. The tribe remained whole. Lone Wolf felt not triumph, but readiness, for a warrior's path does not end when battle ends. It continues, shaped by discipline, sharpened by humility, guided by ancestors and land. He walked through camp. Men nodded, boys watched with admiration. Elders saw wisdom not yet aged. Lone Wolf did not smile, but his heart stood firm. Sky had tested him. He stood unbroken. Tomorrow may bring another trial, another omen, but today tribe breathed safe. A warrior's greatest victory is not defeating enemy. It is ensuring his people see sunrise. The victory in the mountain pass did not bring celebration to the Apache camp. It brought quiet thanks, steady breathing, and sharpened awareness. Men sat around smoldering cedar wood, not laughing, not boasting. Warriors do not measure greatness in noise. They measure it in protection, discipline, and spirits kept safe. Lone Wolf sat alone near the sacred cedar tree, sharpening a flint arrowhead with the patience of river stone. The red-tipped hawk feather lay beside him like a quiet reminder that omens do not come only once. They come when the world shifts, when destiny touches earth again. The shaman approached, step soft, movement slow, eyes ancient. Victory feeds pride if spirit is not kept humble, he said gently. Lone Wolf nodded, continuing his work without raising his gaze. I do not feel pride, he answered. Only wait. The shaman smiled, small, knowing. Wait is good. It keeps warriors' feet on ground. But now you must learn sky as well. He handed Lone Wolf a bundle wrapped in deer hide, sage, river stones, and a single strip of buffalo meat for the journey. The canyon calls. Spirits wait. Strength has been proven. Now wisdom must follow. Lone Wolf bowed his head in respect. The shaman's voice lowered. Walk alone. No brother beside you. No sound but your breath. You will speak to spirits not with tongue, but with pain, hunger, and stillness. Canyon will break you or shape you. Both are gifts. Lone Wolf rose at dawn. No farewell speeches, no ceremony. Apache men do not draw attention to duty. He walked with only a bow, 3 arrows, the flint knife, and the small spirit bundle. His footsteps touched earth gently, respectful. The land is not place to conquer, it is relative, ancestor, breath of life. Mountains watched as he moved. Pines whispered above. Coyotes observed from ridgelines but did not follow. They recognized a man walking into sacred silence. Black Canyon rose before him like jaws of an ancient beast carved from Earth's earliest bones. Shadows pooled thick inside. Wind stilled at canyon mouth as if afraid to enter. Lone Wolf stepped forward without hesitation. Courage is not absence of fear. It is walking into darkness while fear breathes beside you. Inside canyon, air cooled like breath from stone ancestors. Lone Wolf sat near a flat boulder and fasted. First day passed slow. Hunger sharp but spirit steady. He drank from icy stream, letting cold water purify thoughts. Night fell heavy, no fire. Stars hidden by canyon walls. Coyotes held far away, wolves closer. Lone Wolf steadied breath and placed palm on cold earth, whispering, I walk as your son, not your conqueror. Second day, hunger tightened muscles like drawn bowstring. He walked deeper into canyon. Strange echoes followed him. Not human, not animal. Wind carried whistles like distant flutes, though no one played. He placed stone markers at bends, not to find path back. Return path means nothing to spirit journey, but as symbols of discipline. A warrior must organize path even when lost. At dusk, a mountain lion appeared on ridge, tail swaying like brush in storm. The beast's eyes glowed with challenge, not hunger. Lone Wolf did not raise bow. A warrior does not fight spirit tests with weapons. They stared long moments, breathing in rhythm. Finally, Lion turned and vanished. Lone Wolf whispered, "Strength sees strength." Night cold dug into bone. Lone Wolf curled beside rock, conserving warmth. He dreamed, not soft dreams, but visions sharp as obsidian. He saw ancestors standing in circle, faces painted in ash and red clay, drumming slowly. In center of circle stood young warrior version of himself, naive and fierce. Spirits touched his head, shoulders, heart. Then Eagle descended, huge wings wide as canyon mouth, eyes like burning embers. Its voice boomed inside his skull, not through air. Strength without wisdom turns blade against your own people. A warrior must be storm and still water both. Lone Wolf woke sweating despite cold. He rose before sunrise, fasting still. Hunger sharpened senses until sound of pebble dropping echoed like thunder. He continued deeper. Canyon walls narrowed. Path became spine of stone. One slip meant fall to jagged death. He climbed slowly, each handhold deliberate. Fingers bled. Dust stung eyes. Thighs burned like fire logs. He reached narrow ledge and paused, chest heaving. Pain is teacher. Silence is scripture. He whispered, "I climb not to stand above anything, but to stand inside myself." Higher he climbed. Halfway up vertical stone, his foot slipped, small sudden betrayal. Breath caught. He hung from hands only, muscles screaming. For one moment, death breathed against his neck. But he did not panic. Panic is disgrace. He pressed body to rock, closed eyes, inhaled strength from earth, and found new foothold. He climbed again. Reaching summit ridge, he collapsed, not with weakness, but gratitude. He pressed forehead to stone. "I am dust and bone. I am not above you," wind rose. Not ordinary wind. Canyon wind, deep, ancient. It circled him like unseen spirit. Whispering voices of warriors passed beyond earth. He sat cross-legged, burned sage, placed river stones in triangle, and remained still until breath matched canyon rhythm. Hours passed. Or maybe days. Time dissolves in sacred places. A vision came again, not dream, but waking spirit sight. He stood beside same eagle. It showed him battles not yet fought. White-eyed invaders with iron weapons, mountains scarred by greed, rivers claimed by men who do not ask permission from land. But it showed also strength. Apache children training under elders, men building peace through discipline, warriors choosing when to fight and when to guide. Eagle spoke again inside his bones. Warrior not only shield of people. Warrior must also be memory of earth, fight when needed, but teach more than fight. Lone Wolf bowed head. He knew now. Strength alone is path to destruction. Wisdom is path to endurance. When he descended canyon, body weak but spirit unbreakable, sun rose in gold, not red warning. On return, tribe gathered silent. Elders looked into his eyes and saw canyon inside. Depth, quiet storm. No feast, no ceremony. Lone Wolf simply sat among brothers again, breathing same fire smoke, sharpening same weapons, but changed. He did not speak of visions. Apache warriors do not boast of spirit tests. He only said, "We prepare not for next battle only, but for future longer than our bones." That night he trained young warriors not in how to swing blade first, but how to breathe, how to listen, how to see danger before it forms, how to see peace before war rises. Quiet Bear learned patience. Red Raven learned silence. Thunder Arrow learned restraint, not because he feared battle, but because he mastered it. Lone Wolf became more than warrior. He became balance. Canyon turned blade into leader, fighter into teacher. His tribe did not just survive. They prepared for storms yet unseen. And spirits in canyon walls watched, knowing trial had shaped right man. A warrior does not return from spirit journey with pride. He returns with responsibility, and Lone Wolf carried that weight as honor, not burden. Seasons changed like quiet drumbeats across the land. Snow melted from the high peaks, feeding streams that carried new life into the valley. Spring painted the earth green like fresh hope, and the hunting grounds filled with deer again. The Apache camp moved with the rhythm of the land, silent, respectful, never leaving scars on the soil. Fire smoke rose straight and thin into the sky as if whispering gratitude to the spirits. Lone Wolf no longer felt like the same warrior he had been before the canyon journey. His steps were slower, not from weakness but from thoughtfulness. His voice carried weight without needing volume. Young warriors watched him like students watching river to learn flow and power. Quiet Bear followed his example in silence. Red Raven practiced bow drawing until string hummed like wind. Thunder Arrow carved spears with patience he once lacked. Peace lived in camp like sacred smoke. But peace is never permanent for people whose land is coveted. The first sign came from the north. Dust clouds rising not like buffalo stampede, but linear, disciplined. Tracks followed like scars across grass, shaped not by hooves alone but by wheels and heavy boots. Lone Wolf studied them kneeling, fingers brushing earth like reading memory. The earth told him, these are not raiders seeking cattle or vengeance. These are takers, men who march with orders. He rose slowly. Iron riders, he murmured. Men with rifles, steel spurs, wagon wheels, and a hunger to claim land they did not pray to or bleed for. Scouts returned before sunset, breath fast like wind and storm. Riders in formation, soldiers, rifles like thunder sticks. They travel with wagons, chains, and tools for building. Tools for claiming. Tools for fencing sacred land. Tools for erasing tribes. Lone Wolf called council. Men sat in circle, faces carved with knowledge of war and patience. No childish anger, no fear. This was not first threat, but perhaps greatest. The shaman placed burning sage at center. Smoke curled like spirit serpent. He spoke calmly. Enemies do not always come with anger. Some come believing they bring order. Men who think they are doing good can be most dangerous. Lone Wolf nodded. We do not strike first. We watch, we learn, we protect without rushing. If we become wolf too soon, we lose hawk vision. Warriors accepted. Apache do not rush into fireblind. They become shadows first. At midnight, Lone Wolf led scouting group. They moved like ghosts through pine and rock. They climbed ridge above soldiers' camp. Below, dozens of men sat around large fire, their voices loud, careless, echoing in valley. They carried rifles long as arms, metal bayonets glinting like sharp ice. 2 wagons carried barbed wire, cruel new invention, like thorn spirit forged in iron. Another wagon carried lumber for building, fences, posts, authority. These men didn't come to raid, they came to stay. Thunder Arrow's fist tightened. We must strike now, Lone Wolf shook head. Strike snake while it coils and it will bite deep. We wait until snake stretches and reveals weakness. They listened to soldiers bragging, talking about carving ranches, claiming water, pushing tribes to missions, reservations, or graves. Words like poison, Quiet Bear whispered. Their numbers strong. Lone Wolf replied softly. Strength is not numbers. Strength is discipline and knowing terrain. Earth is our ally. Canyon our shield. River our trap. They fight land. We fight with land. They returned silently. Plan formed like stone taking shape under blade. Next morning, Lone Wolf gathered youths first. He looked them in eye one by one. You will not fight yet. Your task harder. You must train harder than ever. Sharpen mind before blade. To older warriors, we prepare ground not for battle only but for future. If we fight only with fury, we lose. We fight with patience. He sent scouts to water sources to ensure secrecy. Others buried food supplies on high ridge. Warriors dug shallow traps covered with brush, not to kill but to slow and confuse. They created false trails, erased real ones, studied wind direction for ambush positions. Lone Wolf worked beside them, never above them. Leader who does not sweat cannot ask men to bleed. On third day, Iron Riders moved deeper. Lone Wolf's trap began, not to destroy but to mislead. Apache call this wind-shaping path. They let soldiers chase shadows. First arrows from far distance, never striking bodies, only hitting saddles or buckles, frightening horses. Then sudden whistles echoing ridges, confusing direction. No warrior visible. Soldiers fired wildly at nothing. Noise wastes courage. Bullets waste strength. Nights brought strange cries placed strategically. Coyote, hawk, owl, human blend. Men slept poorly. Fear entered their fire circle like spirit they could not shoot. On 5th night, they marched toward Canyon. Lone Wolf smiled, not in joy but recognition. Canyon teaches all. They followed faint trail Apache purposely left, thinking they tracked enemy. They didn't know they were led. Inside Canyon, Lone Wolf waited high above, just as when facing raiders. Warriors hidden like shadows carved from stone. But instead of avalanche and arrows, today required different strike. He cupped hands and called loud, voice echoing like thunder. Turn back. This land breathes with our ancestors. Fence it, scar it, take without prayer, spirits will answer. Soldiers froze, rifles raised. Lieutenant shouted, come face us, savage coward. Lone Wolf did not rise. Coward fights with fear. We fight with land and patience. Turn back, soldiers fired blindly. Bullets chipped stone yards away. Waste again. Night came. Cold, heavy, merciless. Soldiers built fires big and bright. Fear likes light. Apache did not strike. They waited. Patience sharper than arrowhead. Dawn brought silence and missing horses. Apache had released them in dark, letting them run free into forest. Without horses, soldiers slowed like wounded buffalo. Food stores stolen quietly, not to starve but to weaken. Water skins punctured. A single painted rock placed on wagon seat, red hawk feather symbol. Warning. Lieutenant grew desperate. We will hunt every one of you. Lone Wolf responded like steady wind. Hunt shadows. Shadows teach humility. After 6 days of confusion and slow bleed of strength, soldiers retreated, muttering curses, promising return. Lone Wolf knew they would, not today but someday. Warriors regrouped in camp. Some wished celebration. Lone Wolf shook head. We did not win battle. We bought time. Time is breath for future. He looked toward horizon. They carry iron and declare law. We carry spirit and knowledge of land. Future will test not only strength but endurance. Shaman nodded. Storms will come. But men anchored in spirit do not drown. They bend like willow, not break. Lone Wolf stared at sunrise. Hope glowed golden, but new threat shadowed edges of light. Land would need warriors who fight not for glory but survival. Not with hatred but necessity. Not with noise but with silence and intelligence. He whispered to wind, we stand as mountains. Storms pass, mountains remain. The wind scraped across the canyon walls like a blade against stone. A cold reminder that winter crawled silently toward Apache land. Lone Hawk stood on a high ridge that overlooked the valley leading to his homeland. Below, the enemy camp lay hidden among mesquite trees, its guards unaware of the eyes upon them. The enemy tribe, those who had sworn to wipe out Lone Hawk's people, had taken shelter in this ravine. Fires glowed like angry stars scattered across the earth. Warriors sharpened spears, others slept, their shadows trembling in the flickering light. Lone Hawk's horse shifted beneath him, muscles tense and ready for a command. He rested a calm hand on its neck. Tonight was not for reckless charge. Tonight was for seeing, learning, planning. The spirit of his father echoed in his memory. A warrior who runs blindly runs into his own death. Lone Hawk breathed deep, steady as stone, then signaled 2 rivers and Wolf Eyes to crawl forward. Together they crept along the high ledge like mountain lions stalking prey. Below, voices murmured. They listened. We strike at dawn, said one outsider. His accent was unfamiliar and his clothes odd. Fabric of soldiers, not tribes. The Apaches will never see us coming. Another voice answered, gruff and confident. Our rifles will finish what your tribe failed to do. The 3 watchers exchanged alarmed glances. Outsiders had joined their enemies. That meant guns would be turned toward their quiet camps, toward their elders and young boys still learning to hunt. Lone Hawk's jaw tightened. The invaders from the distant world of towns and railroads were dangerous, far more deadly than arrows and spears. 2 rivers whispered, they do not only want us gone, they want our land, our water, our mountains. Wolf Eye's voice stayed low, steady. They will choke on their arrogance. Lone Hawk turned back the way they came. We return. We prepare. We fight, but not as they expect. His voice held a calm fire. They moved silently, ghosts returning to their own shadows. The trail back to their people was long, but the urgency in their steps made the miles vanish under their feet. Stars had crossed the sky when they reached camp. At the heart of camp burned a bright fire. A circle of warriors gathered around Grandfather Stone Bear, the elder who carried decades of battle behind his weathered face. Lone Hawk stepped into the circle and spoke every detail of what he saw. Murmurs rose, low and heavy. Stone Bear lifted his staff. Silence returned. The earth tests us, the elder said, but our ancestors stand behind us. We will not bow, we will not run, and we will not wait to die. A young warrior, Sunrunner, leaped forward. Then let me lead a charge. We will storm their camp before dawn. Lone Hawk raised a hand. No, if we fight as they expect, we bleed for nothing. They have guns and numbers. We must break their spirit before we break their bodies. Stone Bear nodded. What do you see, Lone Hawk? I see the land. I see the wind. I see the mountains and the river. These are our allies. They do not know this land. They are blind without fire to guide them. We will take their eyes. We will take their rest. We will starve their courage. A low rumble of respect passed among the warriors. Wolf Eyes spoke next. "We strike like thunder with no storm cloud, without pattern, without warning." Two Rivers lifted his bow. "We cut their water lines, scatter their horses, steal their sleep. Then when they are desperate, we strike." Stone Bear looked into Lone Hawk's eyes, searching not doubt but destiny. "The path is dangerous. All paths worth walking are." The plan was set. No song celebrated it. No cheers followed. This was not glory. It was survival. Night fell like a blanket of black obsidian. Lone Hawk and his chosen warriors moved out. 12 silent figures, deadly as the midnight wind. The moon hid behind clouds, dark and kind to hunters. When they reached the ravine again, Lone Hawk signaled, and the group split like flowing water. 2 Rivers and 3 others crawled toward the enemy horses. They moved patiently, calmly, cutting the ropes, guiding each animal away like shadows leading shadows. Soon the horses were gone, vanished into the dark. Wolf Eyes led a group toward the water barrels. They dumped sand inside them. The enemy's lifeblood turned to mud. Another warrior sprinkled wild plant powder into the food. No poison, only sickness. Better to weaken will than destroy honor. Lone Hawk himself moved closest to the fire pit at the heart of camp. He did not so much as brush a stone with his foot. Quiet as a breath, he approached an outsider sentry, a soldier leaning against a rock. The man blinked, tired, unaware of death breathing past him. Lone Hawk touched his shoulder. The soldier jerked, but a hand clamped over his mouth and the world faded from him. Lone Hawk laid him down gently. Killing a sleeping enemy was not the Apache way, not when another path could break the battle before blood was spilled. Then Lone Hawk lifted ash from the dying fire and tossed it into the air. The wind carried it, a ghostly sign to his warriors. The mission was complete. By morning, the enemy camp woke to chaos. Horses gone, water ruined, men sick. A soldier staggered, clutching his stomach. "We're cursed," he groaned. The allied tribesmen cursed and shouted, unsure if spirits or men attacked them. The leaders barked orders, but fear already sat heavy on their chests. Lone Hawk watched from far above the canyon, silent and still. Every warrior beside him spoke nothing, only watched the cracks of fear widen. When the sun reached its highest, cries echoed, men demanding answers, some wanting to leave. Their unity broke like brittle wood. "This is the first storm," Lone Hawk murmured. "They bend. Soon they will break." When they returned home, the tribe greeted them not with celebration but with solemn pride. Men clasped forearms in respect. Boys looked at Lone Hawk with awe and determination. Stone Bear touched Lone Hawk's shoulder. "The night listens to your command. But remember, what follows fear must be courage. When you strike to end, not to wound without meaning." "I understand," Lone Hawk replied. But inside, he felt more than duty. He felt a connection between his people, the earth beneath them, and the spirits who watched. The fight ahead would determine their place in the world the outsiders clawed toward. He would not let his home fall. Night came again. Tomorrow, the battle would begin in full, and Lone Hawk would be ready. Dawn crawled slowly across the desert, brushing the sky with pale gold and crimson. Lone Hawk stood at the highest ridge above the valley, the earth cool beneath his moccasins, the wind whispering like a spirit that carried messages from ancestors. The enemy camp below was no longer a well-ordered force of confident invaders. It looked like a nest of frightened wolves, men pacing, soldiers arguing, warriors rubbing sore stomachs and clutching empty canteens. Their pride had cracked, their unity frayed, their certainty shredded like leaves in a storm. Yet Lone Hawk knew fear alone could not win the day. Fear scattered an enemy, but desperation could make a cornered wolf bite harder. The moment of final strike was near, and every warrior behind him felt it in their bones. 2 Rivers adjusted the feathers braided into his hair, the handle of his bow resting against his leg. "They panic," he whispered softly. "A frightened enemy is already halfway defeated." Wolf Eyes crouched beside him, gaze sharp like a hawk searching for mice. "Halfway," he repeated. "But the other half still carries rifles." Lone Hawk nodded, silent for a moment. His horse pawed the earth beside him, smelling tension. The young Apache warrior placed a calming hand on the animal's neck. Beneath the geologic hum of the land there was another sound, a heartbeat of destiny. Stone Bear, the elder, approached from behind. His face was carved by years, his eyes deep as canyon shadows. "When the sun breaks fully," he said, They will begin to march. They believe they march to attack our camp. They march instead into the teeth of the mountains. Lone Hawk exhaled slowly. We will meet them. Stone Bear rested a hand on his shoulder. You carry the burden of many souls. Today that burden becomes legacy. Fight knowing the land fights with you, and so do spirits older than any tribe or soldier. Lone Hawk turned to his warriors. 50 men strong, each one hardened by life on unforgiving ground, each one ready to give breath and bone for the land that raised them. Among them, young boys stood too, barely old enough to throw spears but burning with pride. Lone Hawk lifted his voice, low at first, then rising like a drumbeat inside the earth. Today, he said, we fight not for glory. We fight for life. For every fire our fathers lit on these plains, for every stone carved by wind and time, for every warrior who fell so we could stand here today, the enemy comes thinking they step into a battle. Instead, they step into the judgment of the land. A murmur of assent passed through the warriors, calm, steady, resolute. No cheers, no shouting. This was not the celebration of war. It was the acceptance of duty. The enemy force emerged from the ravine, bleary-eyed, stumbling, rifles heavy in their hands, morale broken like brittle wood. Soldiers muttered curses. Tribal allies argued in strained voices. They walked toward Apache lands, believing hatred could guide them where courage could not. At the choke point between two stone outcrops, Lone Hawk raised his hand. Warriors hid among rocks, behind cacti, inside crevices like rattlesnakes waiting for prey. Arrows knocked. Spears poised. Stones lifted by slings. Guns they had taken in previous battles loaded and ready. Then silence. Vast, deep, sacred. A soldier stepped on loose gravel. The sound echoed like thunder in the stillness. Lone Hawk dropped his hand. Arrows cut through air like lightning. Spears flew. Rocks collided with skulls. Dust burst upward as warriors leapt from hiding. The enemy line buckled instantly, chaos ripping through them like a brush fire through dry grass. Some screamed for orders that never came. Others fired blindly into rocks and dust, bullets hitting only earth and sky. Two rivers moved like wind, loosing arrows faster than breath. Wolf Eyes tackled a soldier, disarming him and knocking him unconscious with the butt of his own rifle. A young Apache boy, Small Bear, stood with spear trembling in his grip, fear in his eyes, yet feet unmoving, spirit unbroken. Lone Hawk placed a hand on the boy's back as he passed by. A silent promise. Courage is the breath that makes warriors. The outsiders tried to regroup, but panic ruled them. One of their leaders, a tall soldier with steel buttons glinting, raised his pistol and shouted orders. Lone Hawk charged. Their eyes met across the battlefield, two worlds colliding in a heartbeat. The soldier fired once. Lone Hawk twisted, the bullet grazing his arm like a burning sting. He did not break stride. His spear struck, but he did not kill. Instead, he knocked the pistol away and slammed the soldier to the earth, pinning him with precise, merciful force. We defend, Lone Hawk growled. We do not slaughter without reason. The soldier stared at him in bewilderment, expecting death, receiving honor instead. All around, battle thundered. But slowly, steadily, the enemy broke. Rifles clattered to the ground. Men fled down the canyon in disarray. Tribal enemies scattered, abandoning pride and hatred. Some fell on their knees, begging the desert to swallow them. Lone Hawk's warriors held position, not chasing, not gloating, just standing like mountains. Soon only a small handful of invaders remained, surrounded, shaking. Stone Bear stepped forward. His voice was a low rumble carved from the earth itself. You came with hatred. You leave with lessons. Go. Tell those who sent you that Apache land is not empty. It is alive. It breathes. It remembers. The remaining men scrambled away, leaving weapons behind. The canyon fell quiet once more. Lone Hawk looked across the battlefield, not at bodies or weapons, but at the land that had held them all. He felt the pulse of the mountains, the slow wind of the plains, the heartbeat of ancestors in the soil. He had not won by rage. He had won by balance, by strategy, by honoring the land and its ways. Two rivers approached, placing a hand on Lone Hawk's uninjured shoulder. We live, Wolf Eyes smiled faintly, and they will not return soon. Stone Bear looked at Lone Hawk with pride, not shouted but living in silence. Your father walks with you today. His spirit stands tall. Lone Hawk breathed deeply. The battle had ended, but the world still turned and challenges would come again. Outsiders, hunger, drought, time itself. But today they had protected their land, their brothers, their legacy. He raised his hand to the sky, not in triumph, but in gratitude. For the mountains, he whispered. For the river, Wolf Eyes added. For our ancestors, Stone Bear said. For those who will come after us. Two Rivers finished and Lone Hawk spoke the final words, voice steady as the earth for the Apache. The wind stirred. The land listened. Peace returned, not as absence of struggle, but as presence of honor. Lone Hawk stood between past and future, warrior and guardian, blade and shield. He had earned not glory, but belonging. And in that moment, beneath endless sky and eternal stone, that was worth more than victory.